So welcome, Perennial Pride listeners. Thanks as always for joining me. I'm back here with my good friend, Brandon Jenkins, owner of Tier 1 Coaching. We're on part 4. Crazy to think we've already gone through 3 parts of this 4-part series of learn to lead in your own style. Leadership is, some people say that leadership, people are born with it, but I do believe that you got to find kind of how you lead best. And obviously get skills and coaching and help to sort of shape that to be honed in and most productive. So Brandon, thanks for joining me on this episode number 4 in this series.
Yeah, like you said, Tom, it's hard to believe that we're already on episode 4. I've been having a blast with these, and they go pretty quick for me. So to be on part 4 already is pretty cool. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. And it's just, great to hear from others of their experience around it in different areas of life, whether it's in work and personal life. I mean, we're trying to lead our families, our teams. Hopefully all of these things are helping people, the listener, think about it, how you can adapt it for yourself. So we obviously spent the first 3, and let's just fly back a little bit, just as a quick synopsis. It was more centered around the internal leadership. You got to lead yourself. It's like, how do you lead a team if you can't even lead yourself into a way that's most productive? And we talked about purpose, right? And building resilience and really unleashing that potential. So any big feedbacks on that note, Brandon, that you took away as we reflected on the first 3 episodes?
I think the biggest takeaway for me is that when you do all that work, that inner work, and you start to be more intentional with what are your values, what are your unique strengths, what is your unique purpose on a team, as you do that work for yourself, the big realization, I think, becomes, if this is true for me, then wouldn't this be true for literally every individual? Wouldn't every single person on my team have their own unique blueprint, their own set of values, passions, their own unique strengths, maybe their own unique purpose and role on the team? Right? So I think it's like you do all that personal work at the same time, you are probably gaining a realization that, wow, everybody has this. And so then if you're the leader, the implication there is, okay, if I believe that, if I know that about every other person, now what do we do with that as we move forward and try to build this cohesive team?
That's really huge. And I know even personally going through it is that's what's hit me. It has made me look at people very differently, and way I think my assumptions about them, however I've kind of come across them, it's allowed me to step back a little bit and say, maybe I don't truly understand how they think about things and what they truly value and what makes them tick, and appreciate the joking way, like a snowflake. We all are so kind of like snowflakes in that respect, right? We may see the same thing and react differently to it. It would mean something different to us. So appreciating that as a leader, to respect that and understand it so you can maybe help them maximize their power and their sort of contributions. So then thinking about it, when you've maybe gotten a better foundation for yourself and you're leading yourself and understanding yourself better, what do you think leaders who are now responsible for teams and building and cultivating teams, what do you think is one of the bigger challenges to kind of step in that role?
Well, if you're coming from the place of expert and you have likely been somewhere, honed your craft over years, lots of practice, right? And all of a sudden you find yourself in a leadership position because all the results that came from your expertise, then your superiors, they saw that potential and they're like, what about a promotion? And then you get promoted into this leadership role where you're no longer being paid really just for your own expertise. You are expected to bring out the best in your entire team. One of the first places that a new leader may stumble is if they haven't done all the work, like we just talked about in parts 1 through 3. I think that it's really easy then for that leader to just try to copy and paste what they've seen some of the leaders in their career try to do, what they did, be like them. And this goes for even the great ones. Even the great leaders that you've had throughout your career, if you just try to copy and paste what they did without actually being them, then you start to find that while some things may work in the short term, over the long term, things tend to not work the same way because you're different. You have a different blueprint and you have a different team. And so I think that's probably the biggest mistake that a new leader, like an expert going to leading experts, that's probably one of the biggest mistakes and things to kind of work through and learn is that, oh, I can't just copy and paste somebody else's style. I've got to actually learn what my style is.
Yeah, that's huge. And I guess that goes back to the authenticity of a leader, like of who they are. First, I got to recognize that. They probably know it, but having the courage to allow that to show up in how they lead, right? Versus you said, like, I've seen in my days in the corporate world where it was expected to act that way, regardless if it fit you as a person or leader, but it's kind of, you're trying to play the part in that case. And you want to almost hide some of your unique, flavors to things because whether it's not, you feel like it's not acceptable or you're just not, part of the part you're playing. But then that's how it feels like. It's not authentic. It's like, I don't know what I'm getting from this individual because I don't think they're showing up in any truthful way. It's just they're playing a part.
It's like they're not even a person that you feel like you can relate to and connect to because they're just filling a role and doing what they're supposed to do, quote, because they're in that leadership role. And that, to me, one of the most important things a leader can do, one of their biggest, most primary responsibilities is to be able to foster an environment where their teammates feel like they can collaborate, like they're valued, like they're part of the team and their perspective is valued. They can collaborate, they can innovate, right? You talk about helping them unlock their potential. It's like, okay, what's their unique role? And when they're in this environment where they feel like they can take some chances, take some risks, innovate in their own field, have some leeway and freedom to kind of execute what they're supposed to execute towards the mission, but their little piece of the pie, like being able to kind of own that themselves without you stepping in as a leader and telling them what to do. Like your role as a leader is really to kind of foster that environment for those other experts to do what they're meant to do. And a big part of that is being able to build trust. And to build trust on a team, one of those key elements is that your team believes that they're getting the real you. Like that you are not just playing a part or acting, that when you show up, you are being who you say you are, acting in accordance with what you say you value and what you say is important, that you are showing up kind of fully aligned, so to speak. That is a key element. It's not the only element, but it is a key element in building trust, which is a key ingredient for a team collaborating, feeling safe to bring up their perspectives.
And trust was one of those big things I would definitely want to go deeper into and how you foster that. So I think it's to your point, those pieces, but there's certainly other elements, and we'll touch on those during the course of this conversation, because I think without that, a lot of things fall apart, right? There's probably less cohesiveness and sort of energy that's on a positive level that's generated because of that. But just like any team and culture, you have leaders that are creating it, whether they realize it or not, right? It's like the team's aura or feel is almost driven by the leader. If the leader is just a hothead and just like blaming everybody and screaming at everybody, and then nobody wants to do anything because they're fearful. And I've seen that environment, right? They built a culture of keep your head down, don't question, just move forward and do your work. You don't want to say anything. So in my mind, it's like the team, it reflects who the leader is in a lot of cases, and that kind of comes down. So one of the things that I know you're a big proponent of is continual learning and being humble and So how do you see that playing a role in sort of leadership and developing that productive culture of learning, growing?
Humility is a core value of mine. I think it's important for me to define it how I'm looking at humility. Humility is confidence. Confidence in yourself and your abilities, confidence in your team's abilities. Confidence, though, is that it's that I can do no wrong. Look where I'm at. Look where I've gotten to. I'm so smart. Like I have all the answers. I'm the expert, right? That's not confidence. That's hubris. And so for me, humility is confidence and then awareness. That's self-awareness. So yeah, I'm confident, but I also know that there's a whole bunch of stuff that I don't know. And I have the capacity to continue to learn. And then there's the situational awareness that comes with being humble. It's recognizing what you and your team are being called to do right now. Context always matters. And then understanding, okay, here's what we're being called to do. Here's what we've done. Here are our capabilities. Okay, do they match? And if not, what do we need to learn? Who do we need to call for help so that we can meet whatever the mission is we're trying to meet? So that's what humility is to me. It's confidence and situational and self-awareness and that willingness to admit when you don't know something and admit when maybe even if you do have an idea that there could be other perspectives and other approaches out there that would be even better. So it starts with that mindset. Okay, if you're the leader and you have that mindset, now it goes back to something we just talked about, which was how the leader has such a huge role in the climate of that team, right? The culture is so highly correlated, I think, to the way the leader shows up. A leader who comes in with that mindset is going to be creating a culture where people can voice differing perspectives, okay? And they know that's going to be valued on
Right.
that leader wants to hear those different perspectives. Now, are we going to do, every time you come up with a great idea, a different perspective, Tom, that might not be what we end up going with as a team. But that doesn't mean I don't value what you brought up. It just means that you brought it up, we've considered it, and based on the context and the awareness of what's going on, maybe there's another approach out there that's still going to work. Okay, but there's the way that I handle that as a leader. When you bring up that perspective, it means like everything towards building that team culture that we were talking about, right? So it starts with the mindset, and then it is the actions as the leader. Like, how is the leader actually handling this new information? Like, am I blowing up at you? If you bring me a perspective, every time Tom brings me a perspective, if I'm like, oh, yeah, that's great, and it seems like I'm not even listening to it, or it's like, oh, yeah, maybe I act real good about listening, but then you do it time and time again, and it seems like we don't ever do anything that you bring up. We don't even consider it. If that's the way that I handle it, then eventually you're just going to stop. And other teammates are going to see that. And so even the teammates who've never brought me one, they're going to see how I shut you down every time and how I shut maybe Joe over here down every time. And so then Tim is going to be like, I'm not even going to bother. I mean, look how I handled those other folks. So that's just one example of how the way that I'm behaving based off of probably an underlying mindset that's right. Like if I got the humble mindset, I may be behaving a little bit differently than if I've got some other type of mindset.
You're responsible for the team and its performance, but you also, to your point, having the humble aspect of it to sort of be curious, be open to your teammates or the people that are maybe your direct reports, like getting ideas from them because they may have great ones, right? To discuss them and not be an environment that you're going to get shot down every second you throw it out there, right? Or question, like, I know better as a leader, right? Well, having that balance, but we're still leading a team. So there's still some directing and coaching around that to help guide it. But, that triggering whether that environment is open or closed. And I've seen it done in the open environment. And to your point, the dialogues are great and people are empowered to do good work and raise issues that feel purposeful versus, hey, I just have a job. I'm going to focus there and kind of shut my mouth type of environment. right? So it's really good. So, again, building the trust, and certainly that's one component of it. And I guess too, what I always think about too around trust is in the worlds I felt the most engaged in is when there's one, trust in that open dialogue and sharing of ideas and respect, but it's also clarity on what the team is doing and why, right? What is our purpose? So this goes back to the individual purpose. Obviously, we might have unique aspects of that as individuals on a team, right? But there's still got to be an alignment across the purpose and drive and how the team operates. Can you talk a little bit about that in the context of building trust and unity across a team?
I love this topic because, I mean, when you're on a team, you have a common purpose. You have a common mission that you're trying to achieve, whether it's a project, maybe you're a project manager and you've got a team of experts that are helping you with whatever project you're doing. Maybe you're in the military and you are a squadron, right? I was a squadron commanding officer and we knew what we were supposed to be getting ready and training for. We had a purpose, we had a mission. And so there's no doubt that team or organizational purpose or mission is there, at least it should be. And that is probably, if you got hundreds of people, then you've got hundreds of different blueprints, hundreds of people with different values and maybe a different unique purposes, right? So the key to me, in my opinion, there's a couple. One, everybody on the team, they should be clear on what the team's purpose is, what the team mission is. And that's not a given. Just because they're on the team doesn't mean that they actually know what the purpose is, right? You would hope so, but and maybe not. Maybe they're a late addition to the team. Maybe leadership changed out. Okay. Maybe the organization pivoted and they're doing something different than they were before. So you cannot assume that everybody on your team knows what the purpose is, knows what the mission is, and knows the direction we're moving. So if you're not assuming that, then the next step is we need to make sure that is clear. That can come in a variety of ways, but essentially it's you, first of all, as a leader, right? You need to know, you need to be clear on what it is, and then figure out ways through yourself and other teammates, like other people on the leadership team, maybe. Depends on how big the organization is, right? If it's you and a team of 5, you could probably do the communicating, get everybody on the same page, communicate the mission, etc. If it's you in an organization of 500, chances of you being able to consistently communicate with all 500 people, you're going to probably need a leadership team. Somebody, other people who are in your close circle who understand it are going to get the message out, right? So you have to figure out a way to ensure everybody on the team knows what the team purpose and mission is. Okay, that is critical. Now, what do we do about the fact that every single person on our team probably has their own set of values, probably have their own interests and passions and strengths and weaknesses, and probably have a unique purpose on that team? Well, I think first and foremost, again, back to, have you done the work, leader, on yourself with this stuff? Did you know what that is for you? You know what your blueprint is? Because you know the team purpose and mission, so you better find a way to connect that to you. Like, what about me and my blueprint connects to this? I'm the commanding officer of the squadron. What about me, who I am, my blueprint connects to the organizational purpose and the organizational mission? Okay. First and foremost, because you're the leader and you don't even believe it, you can't even connect to why you are doing it, you better believe if the SU team is like, they're not going to make mission.
Right. They're probably just as lost, right? Just kind of meandering around.
Yeah. So first and foremost, how do you connect your values as your blueprint to the team purpose and mission? Figure that out. And then it's, how do I help my teammates connect their blueprint? And by the way, most of them aren't going to know what their blueprint is. So what we're talking about is the values. How do I help my teammates connect their values, passions, their strengths, their purpose with the team organizational mission and purpose? That is not an easy thing to do, but I think those are the elements that you're working on as a leader to try to ensure that alignment and connection. Because when you have it, then it seems like everybody on the team you're all moving in the right direction. People are self-assessing, self-correcting. They don't need another leader to step in every 5 minutes and tell them what to do, because they know what the mission is and they know how it connects to them personally, right? They have that personal connection, that buy-in. And so they're going to be much more self-sufficient to move in the direction they're supposed to move, versus the leader who's done nothing to try to help them connect meaning and purpose from themselves with the organizational purpose. Those people, they're the ones that you're going to have to tell them every move to make, everything they're supposed to do. You're going to find they seem to never be in the right spot. They seem to potentially always be working against where the team should be going. And you're going to be like, I don't understand why. And my suggestion would be, first, look in the mirror. Like, why are you? What connects with you, like we talked about? And then second, what are you doing to help your teammates connect with the organizational purpose and mission?
And I think that's probably a big challenge from back to balance, because obviously you can have people just telling people what to do. And this is the mission, and, get on board or get off, whatever. But also allowing people to have some flex in there and partly find their way to how it fits with them, right? Because to your point, everyone's going to have a unique angle to it and what matters to them. And there's probably obviously some alignment there, that there's some overlap, hopefully, right? If not, then maybe there needs to be an adjustment of the team if it's not connected in that way. But how do you strike that balance to kind of give them enough direction? Like you said, at least you do your own work as a leader and share it. But then there's a component where there's probably some ownership on the individual employee or teammate that allows them to find their own way and how they're connected to it all, right?
Yep.
Have you seen that sort of like how to play out, like how to balance that? So you're at least giving them some feeling of, sense of power in this too, right? You don't sort of dictate everything, right, to them.
Yep.
Nobody likes that.
Let's just double click on that word, dictate. The most powerful way I've seen it done and how I try to do it myself was ask questions. Like, I'm not trying to tell you why you should find what we're doing fascinating and important. I'm not trying to tell you that. As the leader, I may give an overview. I may give a speech, right? It's all part of, like we talked about earlier, we have to understand what the purpose and mission is. So I'll probably, at some point, I'll be telling you what we're doing, and the leadership team will be helping me do that, right? But when it comes to helping you connect with it, I'm not telling you what you should think is important and then how that connects to the organization purpose, the team purpose. I'm asking you. So I'm finding ways to have conversations with you. And again, the bigger the organization is, you had 1,000 people and you're leading 1,000 people. You're not going to have one-on-one conversations with 1,000 people, most likely. We're going to have a leadership team. So, it starts there. Like, who's in my circle? And it's like, we need to get together and have some conversations. And I'm going to be asking you, like, what is it that you value about being here? What is it about this work that really moves you? What is it about this mission that you can connect with? And those are the types of conversations I'm going to have. I'm not dictating anything at that point. I am trying to help someone kind of clear the gunk away and reveal like what's really important to them and how does that connect to their environment. I found no other way that's as effective as a coaching style. Does that mean we need to be professional coaches as leaders? Nope. Sure doesn't. But I would strongly encourage leaders out there to just look into that a little bit. Coaching style. And it starts with a mindset, again, of just being curious, believing that your teammates are capable people, that they have the resources that they need internally and externally. And oh, by the way, if you're their leader, you are one of their external resources. There may be things they need from you to actually empower them and enable them to do what they're supposed to be doing. That's why you're not technically a coach. You're still the leader. You're still in their chain of command. Nothing that I found has been as powerful as interactions like that, where you're starting with the curiosity and you're asking questions both for you to learn from them like to learn about their situation, to learn more about them, to learn about what's bother them, what they value, what leader wouldn't benefit from knowing that much about their folks? And then while you're doing that, they're not verbalizing that, they're thinking through things, they're clarifying their thoughts, and things are becoming clear for them. So I think it's not an overnight or an instantaneous thing, but to me, that is where I try to focus and where I would recommend any leader give it a shot.
No, wholeheartedly agree. And I think just like that, you're trying to get the best out of, like as a sports analogy, getting the best out of your players and the team. You can have all the best individual players, but cohesively as a team, they may not be very good, right? Because you haven't set the right tone and culture and sort of environment to facilitate that. And, obviously we've talked about sports where it could be a little different animal, but I think it still applies. There's a lot of different things that they're working together on, but for a common goal, right? And there's leaders involved, they're help directing it and providing the coaching and guidance, right? But then also providing the avenue for people to kind of create their own ownership and accountability, right? Empower them. And that's probably the difficult part, especially when I'm talking with folks and so people might be listening, or maybe, solopreneurs or maybe small business owners, and, they're doing everything. And I hear it often from people like, I'm actually fearful to empower somebody else and to do it, right? Because I've been doing it for forever. And I don't know if I trust anyone else to do it better than me. And you might be able to do that, but then what does that prevent you from being able to focus on, right? If you're doing everything. So, as a leader, to be able to give up a little control, right, to some degree and empower others, I think sometimes could be a challenging thing. And so walk me through any sort of your experiences personally or with some of your clients and even coaching, what they face with is how do they overcome stuff like that, right? How can they relinquish some control, empower others to take ownership?
Yeah. If they're not letting go, might be the most important skill. I know we've talked a lot of really important things to consider today, right? But being able to let go for a leader, especially a new leader who's never done it before, that's a tough thing. Because like we were talking about before, you're probably in the position of leadership you're in because you were so good at something. You were an expert at something. I was a pilot, so I became an aircraft commander, and then I had all these flight hours, and then I was an instructor pilot, and it's like, by being great at those things and then getting promoted, now I'm in a position of leadership where I'm still supposed to be able to fly. I'm still supposed to be a great expert at whatever industry I'm in or thing we're doing. Eventually, I had like 40 pilots that I was responsible for and 250 maintainers who were taking care of the aircraft and admin folks. When I was the aircraft commander, I could get away with being able to do it. I was in a multi-crew aircraft, so I always had somebody in there with, for the most part, as the aircraft commander, you can do everything in your aircraft, pilot it yourself. You know what everything does in it. You can do all that. And when your sole job is to jump in an aircraft and go do that, then you can do everything. But when you've got 12 aircrafts, 40 other pilots, hundreds of people in your command, you can't fly every mission. You can't jump in the aircraft and fly every mission. And even if you could, what the heck's going on with the rest of the command and all the other things, right? So you have to learn how to let go. And it's like, even if you could do it better yourself, you learn that it doesn't always have to be your way. Like you learn to look at where we want to go. What's the North Star? What's the vision here? What's the end result of the mission? What are we trying to accomplish? You learn that while you may have a great way to do it, there are likely several different approaches to it that would be just as, if not more effective. Each one of your other experts likely has some thoughts on that. You learn pretty quickly because depending on the size of the team, you learn it really quickly because you'll just burn out. You will not be able to do everything yourself without everything starting to crumble. That could look like you starting to crumble. Your health, you're miserable, you're working 20 hours and barely finding time to sleep or whatever, right? So You will, one way or the other, you're going to learn, if your team's big enough, you're going to learn that you can't do it all. You got to let go of something. And so then it becomes, okay, how do I empower? Again, how do I empower and set the environment where there's all those other pilots where they're like stepping up and saying, hey, we know what the mission is. We got this. Right? That is, the quicker you can learn that skill, I think the better. I mean, that's so true for like the new expert who is going from expert to leading experts. So true for me.
Well, it's to that point, and it probably takes some time to adjust. And even for me, being more in early in my career and individually contributing and have the expertise. And then as you kind of go further along, you're like, listen, there's only so much I can do here. If I want to contribute and do more and build a better organization, like that means I have to let some things go. I just don't have the bandwidth. And even if I could do it better, what if someone could do it 80% as well as I could? Is that worth changing and offering someone that job or responsibility that allows them to develop and free up my time, right? To focus on bigger and better things. Or, as I'm developing my career in business, so I can be better, a leader and develop teams better, right? I need to focus my attention there because as opposed to being the expert, right, in everything, which, has its value. But, if you're trying to build a larger organization, it's just you're going to run out of time and energy to be able to do it, right?
90%.
Yeah.
That can be really scary for new leaders to do. They're just not used to it. They don't, some of them are just like, I don't like it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to love you. And so I would just say, I get it. It is scary. Start small. Okay. You don't have to give away everything all at once where you're the expert doing everything. And then the next day, all right, I'm supposed to let go. I'm not going to do anything. Start small. Start with something that is in your area of responsibility where if it didn't go quite the way that you want it to go, no harm, no foul. Your organization's not going to fail. All right, nobody's going to die, right? So pick something small. And like every situation is different. So it's depending on the listener, like wherever you're at, wherever you're leading, the things that while you would like them a certain way, if they weren't quite that way, no one's going to know the difference. Start there, let go of that. But give some direction, let somebody take that and run with it. And then don't micromanage it. Let's see what happens. And then when it's over, what can you learn from it? Sit with them in a coaching style. Get curious about it. Hey, what worked about this? What do you think about the end result? What'd you do along the way? What worked? What didn't work? What'd you think was going to happen? And then what actually happened? And start to have a conversation like that with them. And now you're helping them get better, develop and learn. Whereas if you just told them what to do or you did it yourself, they're not learning anything.
Right.
Except how to copy what you're doing. And who wants to just walk around and copying? There may be some people who actually do enjoy that in their work. But the higher up you go, the more people you're leading and the more leaders and experts you have actually working for you. Those people want that leeway, that freedom and autonomy to do it their way. It doesn't mean they don't need some coach, but coach, let them do something and learn from it. Fail a little bit, not get the result that you originally wanted, but get a result. And then what can we learn from that and improve upon? And so starting small is a way that a new leader, somebody transitioning, right, and it's real scary to let go. Pick something like that and just give it a shot. Give it a shot and see what happens.
Got to get on the bike and try it. No, I get you. Yeah, no, especially right. Just any broader change is hard, right? So it's a very wise sort of suggestion and recommendation to start small and build upon it. And you start finding it probably might easier. It might actually be more enjoyable to focus on other things that, as you're developing your own sort of business or career or lifestyle that, is also exciting to you versus maybe something that, you can easily do in your sleep, right? So, on that coaching side, which I do love that perspective and certainly something I've started to apply not only to my business, but family and kids and, people want that empowerment, right? Help to think through things. but allow them to absorb it and articulate themselves and have some ownership of it. I think most people would if you give them enough support and framing of it. I think that's really key. And in the world of business, and I've lived this growing up in corporate world, families this happens, right? Where you have the communication may not be optimal, right? Between the team and, maybe difficult conversations don't happen, right? You have to give good, honest feedback and have difficult conversations. So help me from your lens, what you're seeing, where you've been able to foster these healthy, constructive discussions and giving feedback and helping the coach in a way that's not accusing anybody or anything, like being supportive. Talk through how you've kind of learned to do that.
Well, we've touched on it a little bit already, and that is how you behave as your actions. They speak volumes, and they speak way louder than anything you put on paper, anything you throw in a memo, anything you talk about in a speech about how, everybody's valued and we treat everybody equally, and we want to hear all these different perspectives, and we want feedback, good and bad, because we can learn from it. That's all just words out of my mouth or words in a memo on a piece of paper on the wall. Maybe you got the philosophy,
right,
mission, and the values plastered on the wall. All just words. It's how are you, leader, acting in accordance with that? So it's like integrity, right? Like do what you say he's going to do. You say all this stuff. Okay, show me. How are you acting? And that then is going to contribute to the overall feeling that everybody on your team has. The perspective matters. That when things aren't going well, that they're expected to speak up and talk about it, even if it's their fault. And so that we can all see it sooner rather than later, because, problems don't get better when you try to hide them, they just get worse. And so it's all about how leadership, and again, this could be a leadership team. Depending on how many people are in the organization, you may be the overall leader of thousands, and then you have leaders in charge of hundreds, and you have leaders in charge of tens. But overall, how is leadership handling this when this perspective comes up, when this feedback comes back, when somebody raises their hand and say they messed up, and here's how it's going to affect everything, and we got to do something. How are you handling that? Are you blowing up? Are you screaming at the person who brought you the news? Are you doing nothing with it? Then that person's like, oh my God, I'd rather you yelled at me or something as long as something got done, right? So what are you actually doing as the leader to foster this type of environment? Perspectives, getting different people's opinions. When are your folks having the opportunity to actually provide that? You say you want it, but then at every meeting, you find that you're the only one talking. You have all the best ideas. But even if you ceremoniously let a couple other people speak, it always ends up being your idea. Okay, all right. Well, you're telling them something by the way that you handle, act and take those inputs or not. Okay, that's perspectives. You want to have a good dialogue and you want to have healthy, difficult conversations where there's different points of view here. Okay, well, when that happens, what are you doing? Are you accepting it, listening, or are you just shooting it down every time? Okay, well, you're telling me with your actions that you actually don't want things. You don't want to hear these different perspectives, because every time you hear one, you shoot it down. You get defensive. You start defending your position immediately. And then you shoot me down. And it's like, okay, you say on paper, this is what you want. You're telling us you want all these different perspectives, that it's healthy. But then when we're giving them to you, this is how you're acting. So that is the number one, to me, the number one thing that a leader needs to do to foster these types of environments where you're getting the feedback, you're getting different perspectives. You can have these difficult conversations. It's how you're acting, and it's setting the psychological safety of the team to be able to have these uncomfortable, they're not comfortable. Just because you set a good environment, it's still uncomfortable for me to go challenge my boss with a different opinion, or me to let my boss know that I messed up and say, hey, we're running off a cliff down here. I know that I own a lot of this and we're going to work our butts off to fix it, but I need to let you know, here's where we're at. Okay, that's hard, very difficult to do. It's uncomfortable. So psychological safety, it isn't about making everyone feel comfortable, warm, and cozy. It's about, hey, I know that I'm in an environment where I can have uncomfortable conversations. And then I can embrace that. And I know that it's going to be uncomfortable, but I also know that my teammates have my back. Boss has my back. My teammates have my back, right? That's an environment of psychological safety where it's not comfortable, but everybody feels like they're not in jeopardy every time that they have to have these uncomfortable sessions.
That's one when you step back of it and you kind of just think about it, and like that's how they grow and learn and build and build trust with each other, right? Because you can have those conversations and not take it, make it personal. It's about the big vision and sort of purpose of what you guys are doing, and you can have it with the idea that it's all in the sort of wrapper of, hey, this is how we're going to move forward and address things, so we can actually hit that mission on what we're doing, and getting alignment on that. And that's just like anything else, you kind of hit it, like actions speak way louder than words. And so when you start seeing things in a positive or negative way, you're just trading people, right? That's how they're taught how the system works, good or bad, and the leader's going to drive that home, right, on a consistent basis. So one of the things I also think about even if you settle and set these things, the culture and sort of value systems, and set them in place in a positive manner, I think a lot of things, just like anything in life, like how do you make them habitual, right? Keep them sort of top of mind and consistent, because just like anything, even I'm sometimes like, I'll have a daily ritual I get into, and a week later, I'm like, I forgot to do it. Like it kind of, you just forget about it. But like for big things like this, are there things that leaders can be doing to help reinforce these things and make them almost implanted in people's minds? Like obviously being consistent and staying on top of it. And like you said, I'm going to do what I say I'm going to do type of thing. But there are other habits and things that leaders can do to really help sort of structure it and keep it sort of consistent and top of mind for folks as much as possible.
Yeah, we used to call it a battle rhythm at the squadron. We had a daily battle rhythm, a weekly battle rhythm, quarterly battle rhythm. And that battle rhythm was just like, we knew at this time, every week at this time, we were going to have whatever it was, a meeting, officer meeting or department head meeting. And every week at the same time, that's on the calendar. We're having that. Some weeks didn't even need it, but we would keep it on the calendar as a way so everybody knew to plan around that so that they were available for it. But then on that fourth week, when it's like, how we really need to get together, well, nobody's there because they're like, well, it's probably going to get canceled. And so, I planned this other thing about riding my bike because I knew I wouldn't even have to get on the Zoom because, they cancel it every week. So one is like, if it's important enough, get it consistent and leave it on the calendar and start planning things around it. And as a leader, you make that the expectation, right? So battle rhythms are a really good way and you can change the rhythm. Like if it's not working for you, but it's just the act of kind of getting it scheduled. And then like it's important enough where you schedule other things around it, things that pop up. You're like, no, I can't do it there because I have this weekly, monthly, quarterly, annual, whatever it is, it's a thing. So, that's one way when you're on a team and then choosing what those things are and having a real intention behind them.
Mm.
Like if you want feedback, okay, which of those battle rhythm things is meant to get feedback? If you want dialogue before you have to make a decision, if you want to have the opportunity to get different perspectives, which of those battle rhythm events is that meant for? So that when everybody who's showing up shows up, they know what they're there for. And that's hey, we got a decision to make. We want to have a dialogue about this. And that's your opportunity then to get in there and give right? So you're giving them the opportunity to do what you say you want. And then as a leader, you're giving yourself the opportunity to demonstrate how you're going to handle that as you get it. And how, as you participate, you're demonstrating through your actions then, right? How you're receiving feedback, how you are handling difficult conversations and differing perspectives. Those are your opportunities to show and demonstrate how you're going to handle it. And you're also giving them the opportunity, the forum, so to speak. Hey, I want to hear it. I told you I wanted to hear it. And guess what? Every single week, we're going to have this day is meant for what are the big things the team is moving towards? Let's have a discussion about them. Where do we need decisions? When's the decision due? Well, then week, 2 weeks, however long prior, when we come to this meeting, I want your perspectives on this before we make the decision. And you start to build that in and you're consistent with that, then that's your way to demonstrate through your actions what you want. I think on a personal level too, leaders, one of the most effective ways that a leader can add something new that they want to do into their routine and to become consistent with something that they maybe aren't. And I'm bringing this up too because you mentioned something about 5 minutes ago. Like you start doing it and then before you know, you kind of forgot to do it already. Like it's not in your habit pattern. One of the most effective things that worked for me was finding an accountability partner or an accountability group where you care. There has to be a mutual respect. You care about each other. It's probably most effective if it's somebody that you would consider kind of in your peer group versus a boss or versus, somebody who maybe works for you, right? It's probably better if it's someone who's like a peer, and then getting with them, setting up a battle rhythm, like I talked about, with that person or that group to where you're routinely going to meet. Then when you have something new you would like to try and you're like, I think it'd be really good if we did this. You could take it, if you took it out of the example I gave where we got the battle rhythm for the team and it's the opportunity for them to have perspective and feedback, you could even say, hey, I want to do that, but I've never done it. Okay, I'm going to go to my peer partner here or accountability group or whatever, and I'm going to tell them about this. I'm actually going to explain to them why I think it's important. Maybe they'll ask me some questions to help me clarify why.
Right. Yeah.
And then I'm going to tell them, okay, all right, I'm going to do this. Starting next week on Fridays, I'm going to do this. And then you're going to go away from that meeting. And then the next time you come back to that accountability partner or group, that person or those people are going to ask you, how'd that go? And if you didn't do it, you're going to be like, I don't know how it went because I didn't do it. Oh, okay. Why not? I forgot. You now have somebody you know and respect. Remember, those were kind of some criteria up front. Respect them. Peer group, mutual respect, like you care about each other. Okay. So now you've got somebody like that who you're telling that you're going to do something. Like, do you want to repeatedly go back to that group and continuously tell them that you're not doing the things that you said you're going to do? No, most people know they do not want to do that. And it was one of the most effective ways that I worked through some of these things. By the way, let me raise my hand and say, I was not perfect at any of this stuff. If you went back and asked some of the folks that work for me, they'd probably tell you like, man, these are great ideas, Jenks, but I noticed a lot of places where you kind of failed to do this, right? So this is like from experience. Some of this stuff is from my own failures. I had an accountability group. I had a coach. I'm not saying you got to go hire a coach, but I also had an accountability group, and I would bring these types of things to them, and I would tell them, hey, I want to do this. This is the most important thing I need to do this week. And next week when we got together, they would ask me if I did it. And I'm telling you, that is a very powerful way to begin to try new things, get new things in your own battle rhythm, your own habits. One of the most powerful ways I know to do it.
To be able to experiment and get help from people that you know and trust, right? That are there to help you, that want to help you, right? And give you the courage to try them out. Like I know, I think those things are so key. And I think I never really appreciated the power of that until I was around people. And that's why I loved connecting with you and others who have their own different sort of spins and perspectives on even the same topic, which to me just makes me think about things a little deeper and really absorb and have them evolve, right? And same thing as a leader. And so it's great to kind of get that perspective because sometimes when you're by yourself talking about these things, the conversations can go a little crazy. And so, that self-talk stuff, but, having others to help you think through it, just like a separate set of coaches and such, it really is super helpful. This has been a wonderful sort of topic for today, certainly around building teams and cultivating them. I look at the cross of these four, this is kind of a starting point, of helping people find their own way of being a leader. It starts in a whole host of ways internally, but then obviously putting it on the exterior and then sort of developing over time. But, in terms of closing this kind of series out, I guess my question for you, where would people start, right? In terms of this journey, they can go through this series, but for them, where would you think it would be a good spot for people who are looking to get on this journey and figure out how to lead in their own unique way?
I would start with looking in the mirror, start with yourself, and try introspective, thinking about what it is you value, even if that's just an exercise I used to do in my leader development class, which was just, hey, take 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and just think about some of the best interactions you've had in your life, the most enjoyable activities, conversations with people that you respect and love and admire, maybe movies you've seen and you loved it. And what was it about those conversations, interactions, those people, those movies? What did you really value about that? What was it about that person you value? What was it about that experience that you enjoyed so much? Start there and write it down or type it up. Get it out of your head and somewhere where you can see it. And so we would do that exercise for 5 or 10 minutes. And then it would be like, okay, now look at that. What are the top 3 of 5? And now you're filtering a little bit. So all these things are important. Really love all this. And then it's like, oh man, take 5 minutes and narrow that list down to the top 5. And what you're doing is you're zeroing in on what really is important to me. And then it's like those top 5, where do I see those things playing out in my life? Because you may be in a situation where your core values are not there. If you're in a situation like that, you probably also notice some burnout, not a lot of zest for what you're doing, not a lot of enthusiasm, just kind of going through the motions. That's an indicator that maybe some of those values are missing, right? So I would start somewhere like that. I mean, that's something you could do and reflect on and work through. You could also, of course, find some good books about purpose and that. But I think that's a valuable exercise you could do. You don't need to spend any money.
Spend some time with yourself, right? Which is a good thing.
Spend some time with yourself. And that's an exercise that I've used in leader development classes for senior leaders when I was a professor at the Naval War College.
Well, listen, this has been a tremendous series, and I always appreciate you sharing your wisdom and experience around all this stuff, from leadership to building teams. And it's a lot of work, but it's a journey, right? Because we're always continually growing. And this is a great first step to kind of get people to start thinking about, maybe reset the way they think about themselves as a leader and developing teams and their businesses. So, Brandon, I really appreciate you joining me on this, and hopefully folks are getting some value out of it. And sometimes you need to watch and listen to these things over and again to see what resonates with you, at least get something started, right? And you'll be shocked because, when I went through this experience for myself, it's sometimes a little unnerving, uncomfortable, but once you start getting it, it gets easier. And you start learning more and it just builds upon itself, but you got to get the ball rolling, right? So I really encourage you to take Brandon's advice to just take that introspective look about yourself, what you truly value, and is it showing up in your world, right? As a leader, as a father, as a business owner, whatever, wherever you're coming at. I think it'll be hugely helpful. So Brandon, appreciate you, man. I think this is a great series to help people kickstart their leadership journey. And so I really appreciate you.
Thanks, Tom. And I really love doing this 4-part series, and I look forward to our monthly conversations. And then who knows what other podcasts or events we'll do together in the future, man. I love partnering with you. I love what you're doing with Parenting with Pride. And till next time.
All right, man. Take care. thanks for joining me on this episode today. I really am grateful for you as listeners to the Perennial Pride podcast. I hope you're getting some tremendous value out of it and hopefully pushing you along your journey to financial freedom. I put this podcast together really to help you get more educated around your finances so that you feel empowered to live the life that you really want. And if you like the content that you heard today or watched, then I would encourage you to go to my website, perennialpride.com. There's tons of other content there. And you can access my book, Wealth Beyond the Numbers. You can buy it there on my website. It's a aggregation of a lot of great tips and tools I've learned to not only build my wealth in my accounts, but build wealth in my life and abundance and joy, and something that has a lot of my experiences in the journey that I've been on personally. Hopefully that can be also of value to you as you sort of move forward. So thanks again for being a Perennial Pride listener, and we'll see you on the next episode.